I don't know. I'm gonna open some streams and see if you're live.
I'm looking at it. It's coming through. It's not
All right.
totally live yet, but it's coming up.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent. Now we got some
Yep,
people
we're good.
trickling in. Excellent. Wonderful. Cool. Yeah. So, welcome everybody. Good morning if you're on the West Coast. We're going to show off some of the stuff we've been working on. This is going to be fairly engineer tilted simply because a lot of what we've been working on in the last month and a half or so, has been server performance, server memory, client performance, client memory. So there's a bunch of low-level kind of core engine and game infrastructure systems. Not too many features, although this team can't be stopped. We continue to add new, better features that we're excited to share with players for our next test. But we'll show off some of the new stuff we've been working on, and then I'll pivot to a little more tech intense discussion of what the problems we discovered were from the alpha and how we went about fixing them. So I have questions ready as we get into that. And without further ado, Mr. Jeff Kaplan standing on his tent, ready to party.
Good morning.
Hello, hello. All right, so first off, you guys can see on my screen, this is one of the new guns we teased before, the Iron Bison. This is what we call a legendary gun. If I were to bring it up, you can see some of these stats with the Iron Bison. You get this by finding the Great Bison, which is like a special spawn animal, killing it, and then using its horns to create this weapon. The horns teach you the recipe to create it, and then you have to use those horns to create it. But you can see here, it is kind of built in with a bonus effect. This thing will knock back enemies. It's also just a really nice tier 3 double action revolver. So we will roll into one of our new POIs, Procedural, which is at the top of this hill over here. Jeff, you ready to roll out?
I am good to go.
All right. I'm just going to take the Bison for a spin. I haven't really used this in a while. So Jeff, you've been more involved in the construction of this POI. Oh gosh.
Me and this fucking elk. What the actual fuck? Sorry.
Yeah,
That was
sorry.
like
So the
two
Presidio.
F-bombs first thing in the morning. I'm just gonna be real. I was up so late last night doing the deep sea, which is the coolest thing ever. And it was amazing. So the Presidio, Tim is being generous when he said I had a lot to do with this. I had almost nothing to do with this. This was all Steve Massey. Steve is our what we call hard surface or stronghold level designer, and Steve just makes these things and does an amazing job. So of course he works with me and Ben, the art director, but it would be disingenuous for anyone to take credit from Steve. He just has a vision. He does a bunch of research. Our concept artist Brandon sometimes will do some concepts, but really Ben and I will give him minimal direction, and Steve just cranks and does super awesome stuff. So Stronghold Steve, that's his new nickname. Steve actually worked on what was it? Modern Warfare 2 and
yeah.
COD 4. And his last name is Massey, and there's actually a poster, like a cinematic poster, that says Mad Massey, and it makes him look like a serial killer. But he's actually a really sweet guy.
It's incredibly sweet.
Not him at all, and he did an amazing thing. Story-wise, we haven't really talked about the lore of the game a whole lot, and some of that's because the game is not a linear narrative. The game, obviously is more of a sandbox open world game, but the idea is that there are these different world groups on the island, and our tier 4 world group is called Legion Sangre, and there's a whole backstory for them. I'm sure I'm going to win a Pulitzer Prize when people realize the brilliance of the I'm totally kidding right now. But that Legion Sangre group is actually an exiled military group. that ended up on the island. And so while we have some groups who came to the island to do industrial, like mining type stuff and adventurer type stuff, this Legion Sangre group actually got exiled on a prison hulk, and they're a very bad, evil military group. And what they end up doing is building a bunch of military like establishments. So you can actually see, like, even though we're going to be fighting Syndicate in this one because it's in tier 3, but the Legion Sangre flag is flying over there, over this base. So that's who built the base. And it's called Presidio, which is a Spanish fort. It's also where Lucas Arts was up in San Francisco for everybody who remembers those great games.
All right, have you actually played this POI yet? I actually haven't had a chance to play it yet. Not in
Yes.
situ. Yeah. All right. Have you found your best flank route yet, or you just kind of roll in?
You know me, Tim. I always do the cheesiest bullshit, like over a wall. Like I never go through the front door. So
yeah,
it's
sorry,
always.
I'm gonna call veto on that. We go straight over the wall. Is that what we're doing?
Okay. Oh no.
I know. I want to do some Butch
real.
Cassidy Sundance nonsense.
Okay.
Let's just get completely floored here.
Yeah.
Yep. No bows, no silence. It's gorgeous. You can see some of the really great like grounding material effects of it being in the snow. We went different directions. Did I get into you?
We both went over the wall. We just picked different walls to go over.
You guys are a sports team. Very coordinated.
Yeah.
I see ya.
Yeah, we're good.
So one thing that Steve has been working on recently, and Tim worked on a bunch, is the spawning, like the way spawning works. And I'm already feeling, Tim, like this is slightly underspawned.
I agree, yeah. I walked out to the courtyard, and it's funny, we just had a discussion with Steve about that, about like letting him go a little more weapons free on increasing some of the spawns in some of these areas. Ow, I got messed up. But that was, we were looking at existing strongholds, not Presidio. So I think officially, Steve, if you're listening, probably up this way. I don't know. 8 dudes.
I love it in the snow. Oh, you got a guy right here.
Yeah,
shotgun guy.
This thing is nice. I am taking every single shotgun shell.
And the guy's shooting from like 40 meters. That's something I would do.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, it's firing for effect, you know. I'm gonna push him. I hear someone. Wow, one shot on this guy. I like this gun.
What's so funny, we were doing the deep sea until like midnight last night, and that AI is so dangerous and so aggressive that this feels like relaxing at this point. I'm like, oh nice, these guys are kind of chill.
What I'm hearing is that that's a note that we need to make the AI more difficult. Is that?
Yeah. I think in tier 4, I'd love for them to feel like brutal like that. Are you okay?
I'm okay. Guy was blocking the door.
I'm going Iron Bison for a little bit, I think. Go.
Go upstairs.
Oh, I should let everybody know that some of our UI busted. You can tell like a lot of the UI is different already from the last alpha, and we're working very quickly and very aggressively on the UI. But like our looting interact is busted in these, and yeah, it is a new bandage animation. I believe Nick did that, and Nick's been working like crazy on a bunch of new animations. There's a lot of weapon swapping stuff that works differently now with animations, and that means that there are some bugs that we're still working out, but mostly it's really cool. Oh, I wish I had a bolty from up here.
Right? I'm saying this.
Yeah, the
I
tower
also cannot
is so
wait
cool.
to PvP in this map.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, this is good. Okay, so you haven't done this yet, Tim. There's a whole like inside section that's pretty rad. We should check out.
Let's do it.
And then we could have we could have shotgun good times in there.
No, it's always a shotgun good time.
Okay, I'm going shotguns at this point.
Down here?
Yeah, well, yeah, we just need to find the stairs.
Is there a stairway down from the tower on this side?
No,
No. Okay. Oh wait, there is one. I'm sorry.
I lied. Do you like how I lied with
No,
confidence?
no, idiot. Oh,
Anyone
there's
with
a bit
kids
of a. It
knows
actually
what
looks
that's like.
exactly confidently incorrect. It's a bit of a bug here happening where there's snow on the ground of the interior.
Oh
You
yeah,
have to pass on that. Looks kind of cool, but kind of wrong.
little hateful eight. I'm
Yeah.
actually at the chest of all things. I just stumbled onto it. Oh, one thing that people might be interested in that was another one of those requests that we had from the it sort of works. It doesn't work great right now, but we're working on it. It was a request from the alpha that a lot of people had for like all the WoW players call it sheath your weapons, but that doesn't really make sense in this game. So we just call it holster. And we added and we literally bound it to the Z key.
I found a
and
heart spear.
You can put your guns away. Oh, you got a heart spear. Very
Yeah.
nice.
How about that?
Like you found it.
I just found it. Yeah, and I picked it up and I had to. Oh gosh, that works. Oh, okay. Yeah, the heart spear. Another one of these cool weapons. These legendary weapons you get from finding the legendary stag, right? The white stag. You can see the bonus effects. This thing hits like a freight train. The thrown damage is bonkers. Does this like one shot tier 4? I can't recall if you headshot or whatever.
Yeah, well, it sort of depends because like food and gear weighs into it. Like
Yeah.
if you're melee, if you're kind of building towards melee, then you can really go nuts with it.
But you can see the bonus effects here. If you're sprinting, your attacks do more damage, and then a thrown headshot does more damage. So this thing is a little bonkers.
I think it's the ultimate like crash out troll bait legendary ever because we allow you to throw it and like imagine you could like throw Thunder Fury, but you threw it somewhere dumb and couldn't get it back. Like
Right.
it's pretty brutal actually.
Oops, I just threw it at that guy's head.
Yeah, it's actually like directly in the guy's skull.
Oh, he dodged it. Surprise! Yes. Yes, we're excited to do more of these kind of legendary weapons. Not only is it neat from a gameplay standpoint to be able to put these bonus attributes on them, is also the fun moment when you find like the white stag. Like, oh shoot, I can get a heart spear now, or at least I can get all the steel required to make a heart spear. But then our artists get to go ham, right? They get to really cut loose. You know, you think of like in the game we only have 2 spears. The wood spear, which to be fair is a really good looking model, and then the heart spear is this beautiful piece of art you see before you.
And super historically accurate. Like
That's
in
right, yeah.
California in
It's a well-known
1800s,
fact.
they-
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Trying to choose my favorite. Pio Pico, legendarily, equipped the heart spear. That's how he won the governorship of the
Nice.
the Republic of California.
Wow, Tim digging deep there for the California history.
Yeah, that's right. We all read our assigned California book.
I think it's just because you used to live on the west side, so anybody there needs to know where Pico came from.
Yes, Pico and Olympic. And all
It's
those.
not just a street with a lot of traffic.
A lot of traffic is
I'm
the
gonna
understatement of the year. Incoming. Close the door, buddy. I like how our
Oh my
AI
God,
are so
okay.
polite when they die. They
Yeah.
keep the door shut.
I kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie, Tim. I like the interface being broken on the doors and not getting the circle.
I do too.
Like, I think there's something more, I don't know, immersive about not seeing that interact circle all the time. So
I agree.
I feel like we're on to a happy accident with the UI breaking like that.
I agree.
Oh, look at that. Some beef jerky. Someone left behind. Oh my god.
That guy got. Sorry, I need to go back to. I'm doing too much Quake 3 snaps. I gotta slow down for the stream so I don't make people barf.
They're hardcore. They can handle it.
Yeah, these are seasoned Twitch viewers. We clear? Sorry,
Yeah, so a lot of the UI is actually work in progress right now. Or like in a transitional state. So a lot of it's gonna like the compass is a good example. If everyone looks at like Tim's compass, it's halfway. The majority of it is actually not finished, where you see the cardinal directions and the numbers. That's getting completely redone, but some of the icons are starting to be the real icons. So it's just a work in progress right now, but gives you a good sense of where we're going. There's a legendary tree right there, and those have been renamed to ancient trees. So that's probably the most exciting update ever to happen for the game.
Ancient tree. Also some.
Oh, yeah, the control hint system, where it used to be, because we were so early on, we would just like say, like when Tim did his glider and you would see the control hints pop up, those were just hard coded by designers. So if you rebound your keys and let's say it was telling you like press W to move forward and then you rebound your keys to like ESDF or something, it wouldn't update from W to E. That system is now real. The UI is not finished. The UI is like work in progress. Did you manage not to hit any other tree with that?
I did. That was impressive.
And Eric did a lot of work on wood. I mean, the whole lumberjacking team, like Penny did a whole bunch to make the trees look better. But we did a lot of wood tuning. So like bigger trees would have more logs and like the amount of wood you were getting, because it felt really off, especially when you found like a giant oak tree and you just got like a weird amount of stuff out of it.
Yeah.
And we also increased tool durability a ton, because it just felt like tools, like sometimes you'd be going in the alpha, you'd be going through like one tree and your just axe would break, and that felt wrong. So a lot of, would you be able to disable the UI on the sturdy glider, the strutty glider? I don't know. That's a good question. Like you can disable the whole UI. Right now, you can't disable the UI on like a specific thing. But I don't know. We're pretty open to like modding and stuff, and I imagine modding the UI is going to be one of the things that instantly people are going to want to do. So, but like how granular the default controls are on the UI, we like to add options, but again, it's a small group that we have. So I don't know if it would be like so granular that on the glider specifically. Who is shooting me?
Oh, sorry. I just aggroed a small vignette. Did you run through it?
Oh. No, I'm just standing here rambling about
I just
UI
took off. I just abandoned you up the hill.
Yeah. Well, I realized I don't have a horse, so that's been a fun.
Yeah, sorry. We should have mentioned these are cheat characters. We didn't play straight to them, so it's rare we don't want to cheat, but we're in the middle of resetting persistence on the heels. Honestly, of a lot of those optimizations that we put in, kind of obviated the persistence that we had in progress.
And breaking user IDs everywhere.
Oh,
breaking, yeah, it feels like everything was broken yesterday. But I started a new playtest 2 days ago, and even though there's a bunch of bugs, it all still feels pretty good. We were at tier 2 yesterday. I was building my ranch, and it just felt really good to be playing the game legit again. Because I've been working on the mine lately, so yeah.
I've been looking for. I have that. I don't know if you feel the same way, Jeff, but I have those moments toward the course of a milestone where, it's pretty intense feature building or just getting your work done, and then there's those moments where you're like, oh, I should really play, but then it's like a drug addict who can manufacture their own heroin. They're like, well, I could go and work on more features, or I could play some more. I could
just keep playing.
keep
I-
playing, right?
I've been working on the mine. I've been doing all of this like cleanup. There's a bunch of cleanup we had to do on the mine. So I've been sort of like taking my medicine on that, but then also trying to build like in the alpha, a bunch of the mine rooms were prototype, and we just call them designer blockout. Like they didn't have any art done. They were very square. They looked I don't know. They don't look really good. No one commented on it in the alpha, so I was like very pleased that we got away with them. Like these look like just blockout rooms because that's essentially what they are. And then I was studying like which rooms the proc gen repeats, and I just started making tons of new rooms so we have more variation. But I haven't legit played a mine. I've been using the mine preview.
Yeah.
I've been cheating mines and then just going over and over and over, making sure everything's working. But it's so different doing that versus just playing it and experiencing it.
On stream, you can see this is our new fracture system. I apologize. It's still fairly work in progress. We don't have the textures for it yet, but we've started to dig out the hard bits, which is turning the voxel geometry into a bunch of debris on your client. That looks really cool. So once we have the materials all lining up, we can mask some of these seams with particle effects, and it should look real good. All right. Well, is there anything else we want to show in the overworld here?
Mike also built like 4 new of those overworld mines. We call them just like abandoned mines. That's the player-facing name. We have an overloaded term we use internally for those mines, and I don't want to teach everybody that word because it reminds me of WoW, where somehow an entire community of like one of the most popular games ever calls the game retail, which is like,
oh no,
I couldn't think of a worse name to call the thing. So
well, that's on retail, yeah. Now I'm nervous because I was about to talk about some of the optimizations that we did, and I'm worried that I might use an internal word, so I'll try to filter
random
myself.
enemy camps. That sounds fine, Tim.
Random enemy camps.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's
That
all fun and
sounds
games
terrible.
until I show like script code, and it has so just no one draw any conclusions from any of the words you see on screen. That's all I'm saying. All right. Yeah. If we're wrapped with seeing our beautiful island, California, I was gonna jump into a different copy of the island, but first show off just some of the investigations we've done for the performance issues. Actually, before I do that, let me inspect the Iron Bison here so you can see it in all of its glory. Yeah, it's a good looking gun. We also timed this wrong. The sunsets are gorgeous these days. Maybe we can cheese that when I spin up my own server here. All right. Well, I'm gonna jump onto another thing. Does anyone have any questions on what we're showing here before I do that?
I have to say one thing about the moat thing, because I just need people to know that UI is temp. We have this like gorgeous wheel multi-select UI for the moat. It's not that interface that you just saw. That's just like a temp interface that Jeff Goodman and I put together. But the emotes, not only is it going to be a wheel, but then you'll be unlocking new emotes. And then because like so many of us have that like hardcore MMO background, Tim can just press enter and type / inspect. So all the emotes we overload into the chat window as well, for those of you who prefer like / commands rather than
who played text-based MUDs, and that's all we saw. Didn't have these beautiful graphical worlds. All you had was these commands.
I want everything as a / command personally. Just let me type it all. Okay, I'll shut up, Tim. This is I have nothing to contribute here other than complaining about performance when it's bad. So I'll be quiet now.
Sounds good. All right, cool. Let me get my stuff here. Yeah, cool. I'm gonna launch the editor. We're gonna talk a bit about server performance. So for those of you who've been following along on Discord or some of our blog posts, at a high level, the performance issues that we saw on the alpha, which we're working diligently to rectify, were some of it was a surprise, some of it was a fingers crossed. I hope this scales. But as you guys know, we have a very small team, and we want a player count for our server that far exceeds the number of employees that we have. So it makes it really difficult for us to actually like test things at scale. So we rely on a lot of automation. Automation is basically where you get the computer to play the game for you, or to exercise parts of the software that you need coverage on for functionality, for performance, for whatever metrics you want to pull. Um, we we did have some automation that was covering some things, but what we discovered from the alpha was probably 40 different stories of where performance kind of fell down for us. And I'll talk about like maybe one or two of them, unless folks want to dig in deeper. The sorry, I'm trying to keep a chat window up over here. I have a lot of things going on my desktop. Stand by. So one of the stories was like, okay, we've had like tests before with some of our partners where we got 55, 60, 80, 115 players on at once. But what we never had on a given server was like 400 people log into a server, not at the same time, obviously, but 400 people like log in, make a tent, make a ranch, while 40 or 50 or so players are actually playing on that server. That was a big surprise where we were revealed. I won't show you the details on it, but like there were scripted systems in the game that just did not scale to the total number of land claims that were left on the island, for example. So there's a handful of things like that that were just really difficult for us to actually test internally. So we've pivoted to make it so our automation can run that type of stuff. Another one, just to pick on it because I was looking at it this week, is these overworld, what do we call these random enemy encampments that can appear out in the overworld as you're riding between POIs. Um, these are really important to give. I'm a huge fan of that system because I love that our combat is so flexible. Our path data knowledge, our AI navigation is so flexible that they can kind of fight anywhere. So I like that there's a system that exists to create a fight anywhere. It scratches that itch for me. We've talked about PUBG being a big inspiration for this game. Of like, yeah, I'm gonna have like a PvE PUBG experience where I find a group of bad guys. I can see them at a distance. I can gauge them. I have the terrain affordances around me I can actually work against, and that's what that system kind of feeds. But turns out that system at scale, when you have a whole bunch of players running around the island, can be a little bit spiky. And this is one of many quote unquote spiky game systems that we have. What I'm showing here on my screen is this program called Insights. This is part of the Unreal suite of software. And Insights is what's called intrusive performance tool. It basically tells you where your time is going on a timeline in kind of a structured way. So if you think of a video game is like a movie, it needs to generate a certain number of frames per second to maintain the illusion that you're seeing something in motion. The client does that, and it can do that kind of as fast as your GPU can run. The server, on the other hand, isn't really on the hook to run as fast as humanly possible, but it does have to run sufficiently fast so you're not like getting update rates like mail-in chess, like it's a slideshow. So there's kind of a minimum server update rate that's acceptable for different types of games. For this game, what we're targeting as nominal for a full server is somewhere in the range of 20 hertz. So the server is sending you 20 packets a second telling you the state of the world. Our server is actually it's adaptive in nature, which means if there's low load, the update rate winds up being higher. And if there's high load, the update rate winds up being lower. But there's limits, right? You can't, if the server sends you one update every half second, that's just not going to be playable. And those are some of the things that were happening on the alpha test, but not all the time. Only during what we call these spikes. And you can see that this little thing up here is a histogram. This is a capture from the alpha, from the Wolf server, which I've named Bad Wolf because there was a lot of really cool information in here. And to be very clear, I have this thing weighs in at like, I don't know, a quarter gig. I think our team has looked at terabytes of this type of data. If we pour over these things like the Elder Scrolls, like it's just a endless font of information to kind of tell us where we need to optimize our stuff. But when this looks good, you don't have these giant spikes. You just kind of have a nice even keel. I can zoom in here. Like you have like an even, fairly not terribly noisy rate of change. Each of these columns here, by the way, is basically how long it took to simulate that frame on the server. And you can see here, these ones are pretty quick. This is like running at 70 hertz. This is running at 60, so on and so forth. That's in the range of nominal. I even mentioned like if the server ran at around 20 hertz, you can see this frame here. If we zoom in on it.
Do you have examples? Do you have examples in this, Tim, of like when the players were seeing like the 1 server FPS, 5 server FPS, like those really chunky big bits, and what
Oh
that
yeah,
looks like there in this graph?
it's this guy over here, 0.6 FPS. There's a guy. I'll show you what that one was. That was fun. We actually fixed that one live and patched the server for that one, if I recall correctly. That was really bad.
Yeah, I'm just
One
trying to
guess
let
what
the
that
people
was, by
who
the way.
maybe are less technical, if you're looking at this and thinking when you were playing on the server and you were seeing in the display like 1 server FPS, 2 server FPS, what block is that? Like what counts as a, a single server FPS here when you're looking at it in the graph? Like what's one tick basically?
Yeah, you know, in terms of what's happening in one tick, or what's happening in the
Or
bad
just what
tick.
does it look like laid out basically? Like you can show a bad tick and show
Yeah,
how long that
yeah.
looks on the timeline
So
versus a
I'll show the
fast tick.
contrast, right? So like these ticks here are nice and healthy, right? We said 20 milliseconds is nominal. I think honestly, even if the server was updating at 15 for short windows of time, that's okay too. You aren't going to notice. And the reason you aren't going to notice is the server is going to be varying how long it takes to compute whatever is happening on the game simulation. It's going to send you down the state of the world, and then your client has a whole bunch of really cool smoothing algorithms to make sure that presents smoothly on your client. For those of you who are super interested in this stuff, Valve ages ago wrote, I think for probably Team Fortress, they've talked about it more on Counter-Strike lately, like the Bible on the techniques you use on the client to make sure that a noisy server, even a server that's varying by only a couple milliseconds, comes across as smooth on your client. And that's kind of like the standard that everyone uses. We're no different here. We're very much in Half-Life slash Counter-Strike slash Quake camp of how netcode works. I'm talking about this. Yeah. So these frames are all very healthy. This frame is actually fairly fast, but it should come out in a wash. If the server was running like this the whole time, it would have been incredible. Like this is actually running faster than we would need it to for the population that we wanted. But it would have been really smooth for folks. They wouldn't have felt any lag at all. Even these little 30, 40 millisecond spikes, they're a drop in the bucket. You're not going to notice that. You sure as hell are going to notice something like this though, right? So this spike here, you can see, that might be hard to see, but if I zoom the histogram up, you can see how gnarly this is in terms of performance. This is what is happening on the server, where the server is basically running at like between 0.5 and 1 frame a second. Or I guess two and somewhere in that range. These are really, really bad. These, by the way, this we fixed during the alpha. This was caused by the what we call a placeable. In this case, it was a picture frame. Was taking an awfully long time to collide against the world. This is someone who's trying to move a picture frame in their house, and each test is taking on the order of 50 milliseconds, which is, by the way, the entire budget for a nominal frame, just to do one tick of this picture frame update. So this was an example of something that was just like beyond the pale. We actually had to address it during the test. These are kind of extreme. A typical like bad spike that was more common throughout the test would be something like this, right? Where a frame comes along. I chose a perfect one. Yeah, a frame comes along that is really, really heavyweight, and it takes a little bit of time for the game to kind of flush that, so to speak, or to make sure that everything's working back to a smooth update rate. In this particular case, if we come in here, we can actually see what systems were in play here. So this is only because I know the magic sauce here. This is a example of one of these random overworld encounters spawning in. So with that in mind, I have the editor booted up here. I'm going to kind of demonstrate what that looks like. How does this like random overworld thing spawn in, and why was it so expensive in the alpha, and what have we done to fix it? And that we'll kind of dig into an interesting tale about how do we quickly respond to these things so we don't have to like invite random players to tell us that stuff is broken. We would rather find it like as quickly as humanly possible so we can remediate as quickly as humanly possible. So I'm going to hit play here. Live software, everybody. Please be patient if things crash. It's my fault. Just for sanity, I'm just going to go invisible here. I'm also going to do some debug tools to show one of these things popping into existence there. That giant blue column right there, perfect. That is one of these random encounters. I've with that debug command, I've kind of shortened the distance at which this thing will spawn in front of a player. The idea is that you don't notice it. You just kind of go through the world, and these encounters are there for you, waiting for you. They actually wind up spawning much further in front of the player than I did in this kind of contrived environment. But you can see all these little props are going to be placed in the world, and they need to conform to the geometry of the world in order to kind of sell the illusion that this is a little encampment that some bad guys have set up. And I don't know if this one is actually set. This is probably set to be an ambush, or maybe it's just abandoned. Who knows? But we obviously don't tell our artists they have to like author every single permutation of every single prop. Instead, the artists kind of author all of these prop placements on a flat plane. They build a little scene. So this is like what is this, the moonshine? Which one is this one? Yeah, this is like the moonshiner's random encounter. So it's telling a little story with all these little props. And this is predominantly done by Tom, one of our brilliant, I guess our only hard surface modeler, but one of our brilliant environmental artists. He authors this scene with all these different placements, all on a flat plane in a different level. We then decompose that into a manifest of all these placements. And then when the game says, hey, up in front of the player right now would be a really cool place to spawn one of these encounters, we stream in that asset, all that placement data, and then we procedurally place all of those props so that they line up and register with the world. There's some other rules too. For example, let's say when this thing decided to roll, there was like a tree in the way, or there was a rock or something. What Tom can do when he authors these scenes is he can tag stuff as like a hero prop. So if this distillery mesh is critical to tell the story of the moonshine, then he can tag this cluster of props as what's called necessary. And he can tag like maybe the campfire as necessary, or maybe the exploding barrel as necessary. But maybe the tent isn't tagged that way, and maybe this cluster of barrels isn't tagged that way. And what that tells the system is, all right, cool, I'm going to try to I found a candidate point in space to create this scene. I'm going to randomly rotate it and place all these props. And then if any of them like intersect a rock in a really awkward way, I will delete that prop. Say, it's not necessary to the scene, it's good to go. But if it is necessary to the scene, then the whole scene kind of aborts. It just abandons creating it, and then the system goes on cooldown to try to create it in a better spot. So it's a cool like mechanism by which the artist can art direct the scene, and the game can honor it in as many different environments as possible. Now,
kind
go
of
ahead.
related to that, Tim. This is from chat, and I think is right on with what you're talking about. Someone asked about the conditions to control where the scene will show up. So I'm thinking like by water, by a grove of trees.
Yeah.
So sort of the suitability of the biome for it.
That's a really cool question. I'll finish this bit, and then I'll stop the editor, and then we can actually fly around and talk about that. That's actually a really cool part of this system, is
cool.
Because again, the world is huge. The world's like 80 square kilometers. We don't hand place where these things can spawn. We come up with rules for where these things can spawn. And then there's this cool feedback loop, just to get through real quick, where we've chosen a candidate point. We can then interrogate that candidate point and ask questions like, what's the weather? How close is water? How close is a road? And that can go into the scoring. There's a whole scoring system that chooses which of these scenes to present. Moonshine camp can appear everywhere, but like Fish camp can't. Fish camp can only appear near water, right? Or the overturned wagon can only appear near roads, and those are just the rules that we use for those different scenes to filter them down. All right, so I'm going to rewind time a little bit because I always love showing off the scrubber. So here's me going back in time. Woo! And I'm going to rewind back to when this thing first got created. I've also turned on, you can see it disappearing. Let me find the frame where, there it goes. Cool, here we are. Yes, this is fun. All right, so um, you can't see it on my other monitor here. I'm just moving this little read head, this scrubber, back and forth. I'll get that off the screen so it's not distracting. But what I'm showing here is that moment of placement, that moment where we say, all right, here's all these candidate props. Let's go and figure out where they're going to be. So what you're seeing here with this little debug draw is that cyan box is kind of where the prop was placed originally. We are going to start our spatial classification search up, and then we're going to quote unquote cast down, as we say, and try to see where that prop should sit. And this red box here that's kind of oriented into the terrain, that's where that prop's going to sit. And if I go back to the frame where it shows up, that's the position that it takes. Right? You guys see that? So.
Hey, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Did you? And I apologize if you mentioned this. Did you mention to them that not all of the props have to place?
Yeah,
like
that was the whole necessary versus not necessary
Yep.
bit. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. So this placement logic, as you can see, I'm scrubbing over multiple frames, and you can see we don't do a thing where like every single prop tries to figure out where it fits all at one time. I'm kind of advancing 2 or 3 frames at a time, and you're seeing different kind of queries light up. And then once they all kind of choose where they're going to be and whether they're going to succeed at placement, then they all appear, minus these 2 guys for reasons that I need to fix. And the reason we do that, the reason we spread it out over time, is to avoid those spikes, right? It is not computationally free to do those kind of geometric queries against the environment to see what fits. So it is a mitigation strategy that we're using in order to spread that damage over time. In fact, that code was in the build that we saw, that we played for the alpha. I can actually probably look at it here. It's probably, oops, sorry. Yeah, this was the frame that we loaded all of those entities invisible. We don't reveal them to the client yet. And then we do the placement. So these are all individual frames. We do the placement over a series of frames, right? So at the end of each of these blocks, by the way, this is where we actually send data on the wire. So if you think of you're watching a movie, this is throwing the frame out to the projector so you can see it. So we did have some logic to space that out, but that first frame, this one actually isn't as bad. Actually, this one's pretty bad, but not as bad as I've seen them. 50 milliseconds is pretty bad. That first frame was the one that was problematic. The successive frames are really mostly expensive because they're reeling from the cost of simulating the first one. The server has to kind of keep the clock running. It has to do the work that time has required of it. Less of the time is actually spent doing that placement over time. And the reason this thing was expensive just on that first frame was because each of these placements was just using a really heavyweight script. For those of you who watched the last stream, I mentioned like every game object in this game is entirely driven by our own proprietary scripting system. And each of these really small props were running a script called placeable. And placeable is really big and popular and does a whole bunch of functionality. So you can see this monstrosity has a lot of functionality to it. And the reason this functionality exists is because the first use case for what we call placeable are the furnishings and the processing stations that you place on your ranch. So those are things that you need to be able to walk up to, and when you interact with them, you need to be able to validate that they can actually fit. They need to preview the validation so you can see. I can show it in a sec, but like when you go to play something, you see the little preview of the thing out in the world in front of you. It's a ton of functionality. Some of the more elaborate functionality, which I think is captured over in this part of the graph, is hierarchies. Like if you if you have a tent and your tent has a workshop, or has the workbench, has the furnace, has the camp supply, your camp storage and your bed and your mailbox. When you move the tent, all those other pieces have to move with it. Well, that's all the functionality that Placeable was doing. And ages ago, when I was working on this system, it was really convenient to just say like, yeah, just use Placeable. Placeable does all the smarts to like give it an arbitrary location and you just teleport to it based on that type of stuff. But since I did, and that was probably me being lazy, and let's all together curse 2023 Tim for his lack of foresight. Um, the Since then, the placeable behavior, this kind of scripted behavior, has grown immensely to solve a very large set of problems, and it's just no longer necessary. Where this thing can be a much, much, much simpler script. So instead of using this monstrosity with all this functionality, where spinning up one of those things has high overhead, instead what we do is I replaced it with this much, much, much simpler script. Right. So what this script does is, based on some loading information, it understands what mesh it has to draw. In this case, it's going to be drawing this beautiful generic wood barrel A, and then it communicates with the placement system to specify what its bounds are, and all of those things I mentioned before, like, is this necessary? What's the limit that I can actually raise and lower the height? Let me go back to the frame where this guy comes into existence. There he is. Like those offsets, how much can it raise and lower its height to match where the center of the scene is? All those settings just get plumbed through, and then when the system says, okay, cool, you've been placed, that's when we say, great, give it a mesh to render, make it push the grass out of the way, give it some collision. That's what these two guys do together, and that's all. So a lot of the optimizations that we've done recently have taken that shape too, of like, wow, using component placeable is just overkill. We don't need to do that. So let's just do something much, much, much simpler. So this is really where the heavy lifting actually happens with this guy. And we've done this exact same operation. Matt, one of our system designers, has been assisting me all week of finding places where we were just overusing this very useful but very heavyweight piece of functionality and replacing it with much simpler alternatives. So for example, all the loot containers you would see out in the world, those also were placeable. So when you go to spin up a POI, it had the same problem. Like, it just took a lot of energy to initialize all this stuff. But we were only using a fraction, literally a fraction. Like, those 4 nodes are all we were using from all these nodes. So it just wasn't worth doing. So there's a few more systems that will do that too. But this is an example of the type of work that we are doing to get those spikes flattened out. And again, there's like 40 more stories just like those that the team has been working on, and we haven't gotten all of them yet. Many of them are landing in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's kind of the plan. So how do we find which things are problematic, which things have a big perf overhead? Well, I mentioned these insights files. These are really, really handy, and we've instrumented these where we can do things like, if I wanted to see where time is going for spinning up AI agents, or like a specific script that's running, I can do this type of thing to see where that time is going. And that's really handy. It's also really easy to say like, hey, on average, like, which script was the worst? I can filter this way and say, maybe it was character movement. Not quite, because this is multi-threaded, but maybe it's like I'm going to choose one here. The chase behavior. Maybe this one was a little too expensive over a course of time. But pouring over these isn't really useful, because you kind of have to catch the bad behavior happening inside this profile. This one covers a 2-minute period of time. These playtests last for a month, so like, if you don't catch it in these profiles, then you can't have a human come along and watch it. So instead, what we've done is we have these perf reports that we can generate, and we generate those perf reports not against humans playing, because we don't have enough employees to fill a full server, but against bots playing. So like I mentioned before, we had bots before, to tie it back to the refinements we've added to the bots, to tie it back to the story of these overworld scenes. The bots we had before were very much hey, wander around an area and chop trees and loot stuff and kill animals, or wander around a POI and kill things and loot things, or go create a ranch and mine in your ranch. One thing that those old bots didn't do was actually just get on a horse and ride across the entire world. And for those of you who've seen The Legend of California or played Legend of California, that's like 70% of what you do is actually riding across the overworld. So our bots were not doing what players spend most of their time doing. So we went back to basics on them and ensured that they were actually doing behaviors that much more closely align with what humans do. And in so doing, those bots are finally starting to spin up these kind of overworld random encounters, right? They wouldn't a bot that just circles a POI is not going to spin up these overworld encounters. These definitionally don't happen in POIs, sorry, in strongholds. So that allowed our bots to just show where the time is going and generate these reports day over day. So one of these reports, let's look at an old one here. So these reports look like this. All you statisticians, put on your glasses. Here we go. Um, we're trying to find a couple different things. We're trying to find. This is an old one. We've actually these numbers have dropped dramatically in the last couple weeks. This I think was from 422. So this is only a few weeks old. Um, uh, this report gives us lots of cool stuff. It tells us certainly how long did this test run. This I think was in the order of each one of these is 16 milliseconds. So you guys can do the math. I think it's several hours. How much was our average update time? 13.3. That's a little risky on a 16 millisecond budget. What were the spikes? Which things kind of stuck out? And how many times were they actually sampled? So here's an example, like discoverable was really, really spiky, and here was the specific node in the script that was spiky. So these reports can tell us, this has been fixed, I'll show you what that looked like. These reports can tell us exactly which script was problematic, where the source, or the attribution of the cost was, and which node in the script was the problematic one. So in this case, I'll show you the old version, but it was this node here that was really, really spiky and expensive. Just, I won't go into too much detail about why this was spiky and expensive, but it was a function of how many players ever showed up on a server. That was how many discovery managers there are, um, times the total number of discoverables in the world, which is how many strongholds and outposts are in the world. So if you had like 400 players who ever showed up in the world, and 100 discoverables. There's more than that. There's like 400 discoverables, but I want to do the math. You're talking about 40,000 things to reconcile just with that one statement there. So this would trigger anytime anyone discovered anything, which on a full server is happening every couple seconds. I don't know, maybe every 30, 40 seconds, someone's discovering something new. So this thing would wake up and spike every single time, and this report will tell us that. It tells us like, hey, here are the scripts that are problematic. Let's go and actually address them and understand where the time is going, and get these things down. This runs every single night, not just because we have work to do and we want to stay on top of it, but because we want to continue to add features. We want to continue to add new stuff, and we don't want to find out in a public playtest 3 months later that something was inefficient. We want to find out the following night.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
There was a question on YouTube chat that maybe you could answer. I know the answer too, but I know you'll give a bit better. I'm a bit at Cheesehole asks, I'm a bit confused. Are those placeable camps generated constantly throughout the world, or are they placed at the beginning of the reset? Are they wiped after a period of time and regenerated? So it's a interesting, complicated subject. Is some of our world is static and some of our world is not. So, and I know you've kind of covered it, but there's a lot of info. So if you could clarify.
Yeah, it's a weird classification thing. As a player, like, we want you to be immersed in this fantasy where you're going across this island and you're having fun adventures on the way. And yeah, some of those, it's all procedural is the short version, but some of those structures you happen upon are what we call static, which means they're going to be there for the entire month of that session, of that server reset. Every time you go back that structure is going to be there. And they start at the smallest, which are the hideouts, and they get as big as what we call our large strongholds, like the fort, uh, um, the shipyard, like the prison, these gigantic structures that exist. And those ones make sense that they're static because like you could be fooled as a player that this is not a permanent establishment, right? That you could stumble upon it at some point in time, but then come back later and it's gone. So that system, this kind of like the overworld random scene system, definitionally doesn't spin up when the world gets reset. These things are scene managed, and by scene managed I mean as the player runs through the world, we've spawned these things out in front of them. Again, this is a contrived example. I'm going to rewind time a bit more. Let me see if I can highlight my player. Sorry.
I had another weird suggestion for you, Tim, but
Go
I
for it.
don't want to like throw you off your mojo because obviously like you're scrubbing the timeline here.
Yeah, I'll just show
But-
it, right? So you go ahead, Jeff. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say maybe when you're done with this example, you could also show them how Tom set up that vignette
Hmm?
and what Tom's view looks like when he sets it up. Because I
Yes.
think they'll find that interesting too.
Yeah. I described it. I definitely want to show that too. That's great. Yeah. So I'm rewinding time a bit here, but you can see that little yellow highlighted thing in the right-hand side. That's where my player is. I've detached the camera so we can see it. If I scrub time forward, as I run forward, uh, you'll see some crows spawned on the left-hand side. That's fun. And then this random encounter spawned too, right out in front of me. And again, this distance is heavily foreshortened for debug purposes, so I can get to these things faster. Typically, these things spawn out literally like 100 to 150 meters in front of you, basically over the horizon, so you don't see it pop in. You just feel like it was there by the time you got there, and that's the idea. And it literally is quote unquote out in front of you. There's kind of a narrow cone. It's not so gamey as you can actually control it. There's a lot of filtering that happens on it, so you can't do weird things. But what we don't, these things aren't cheap. If you got 100 players on the server, and let's say each player is allowed to have up to 2 of these things active on their behalf at a time, that's 200 of these scenes out in the world. If we just spawn them randomly, you're never going to stumble upon one. So we really try to spawn them around you, right? All of our spawning systems are very much player focused. All the critter spawners, these encounter spawners, even the strongholds. I have them turned off on this map, but the strongholds are to kind of sit dormant until a player gets near them. And the reason we do that is we do not want to have to simulate thousands of things all the time. We only really want to simulate things when players are nearby. You know, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did it cost 5 milliseconds? Like, just don't spend the CPU on it. So I hope that answers the question. Someone in chat asked the radius for spawning around the player. Yeah, it's in the order of like 100 to 150 meters. It's deliberately over the horizon is usually the intent, so you don't see it.
Someone in YouTube is asking, as a player, can you increase camp spawns when in flat terrain?
It's a loaded question. These type of camp spawns. It's tuned not based on the geometry of the world. It's tuned more about how much the server can tolerate. So I mentioned like the server is allowed to keep 2 of these up for a single player at a time. So that's kind of the main constraint that we use to spawn these things. Generally speaking, though, if you had just tuned in, I talked a bit about an artist sets up the scene. They set up all these props kind of on a flat surface, and then the game will procedurally place them into the world and sit them on the terrain. But if there's an obstacle, like a rock or a tree, that blocks some of these props, some of the props are optional. They're not part of the storytelling, and they can just not be there. Some are not. They're part of the storytelling. They're necessary, and that will fail the creation of this encounter. So on a flat, open terrain, your odds of canceling one of these set pieces is very low. There's not going to be very many obstacles. Whereas on really, I mean, this is a simplified map. This is not obviously the whole island. This is tiny. Some of this terrain's really sketchy, and like we can't spawn. If we spawn some of these scenes on some of these slopes, it'll look a little weird. So on more rocky or more varied terrain, you're going to get fewer just naturally, just because it's harder to fit them. Some of these scenes are like mines that are built into the wall. Those are the ones that actually sit a little bit better in scenes like this. So you'll see more of those, less of these kind of camps. All right.
Just generally too, like this is not just for our game, it's kind of for all multiplayer games. Very rarely do games give players the ability to spawn stuff. Uh, it usually ends very, very poorly. And what I mean is not like occasionally you can do an event that like calls in some AI or whatever. I mean like arbitrarily spawn stuff in, because that's just begging for a crash to happen.
Yeah.
It's begging to run out of memory at some point.
Yes, we have those scene management constraints. Someone asked if animal spawning is similar. Yeah, it's a different system with different rules, because animals move a lot more. These things are static. So at a high level, you have what we call like the near spawning animals. Those are for the small prey animals like rabbits. I think some birds. Then you have a broader radius of spawning. I'm drawing it wrong, but and that's where you get a wider variety of larger animals that won't look too distracting. They would look too distracting if they popped in on you, and that's where you get your larger predators and prey. That is a different system than these overworld encounters deliberately. Partly because they're doing two different kind of scene management jobs to make sure that the population isn't so insane that the server gets overloaded. Um, there's also spatial constraints. This is a multiplayer game. I mentioned these scenes spawn in front of you, but they're not going to spawn in front of you on top of another scene made for another player. They're not going to spawn on top of another player, although sometimes they do because of a bug. Right? These scenes do need to stay separate. So when these scenes spawn in, they have like this invisible footprint. Sorry, I'm going to keep showing debug stuff because it's fun. Oops. Where's my boy?
Hey Tim,
Yeah.
there's a really good question from Discord. I'm sorry, I'm like totally interrupting you.
Yeah.
But I think this would be worth talking about. It's not related to what you're talking about right now. Um, Thunder asked if you can explain why animals randomly stop spawning in the alpha,
Oh yeah,
which I think
I
is
totally
actually
can.
interesting.
It is. Yes. All right. Well, let me talk about these footprints, because this is relevant for the animal spawner, and then why do we keep the animal spawner on a separate footprint channel than these overworld encounters? So there's lots of these spheres here. These are called shape locks. This one here corresponds to that scene. The rule is like when we spawn one of these scenes, it reserves that footprint, that sphere, so that if another one gets spawned, let's say there's another player coming this way, and that's a good candidate location for one of these scenes to spawn in. It can't because it's occupied by this footprint. It can spawn just outside of it. Each one occupies their own footprint. I can't draw on my screen, but if this one is this sphere, it would have to be over here, non-colliding. So they would be, I think the sphere is about 50 meters, so they have to be about 100 meters apart to space them all out. Critter spawning works the same way. Yeah, multiplayer game, if we're spawning around players, we don't want to spawn a higher density than makes sense for the game. So when a critter or an animal spawns, we also leave these kind of footprints. Why these two things are on different spawn channels, as we call them, is really critical. It makes for some really neat emergent gameplay. If the overworld encounter system wants to spawn this set piece, and the critter spawner wants to spawn a bear, in roughly the same spot, they can do that. And then when you come across this, holy crap, there's a bear devouring all the bad guys that are here. Like, we want to keep those things separate because it makes for these kind of fun little moments. All right, let's talk about why did animal spawning break in the alpha? So there's a couple different mechanisms that I talked about to spread the damage of some work over time. So in this little hump of, it's not a huge spike, but in this little hump of work, we loaded the scene, and then we over time did the math to procedurally place all those things. And when that was done, we revealed all those props. Right? That was the just to get back to the visual element here. That was this. this process here of these little debug lines that show up. Boop, 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 boop. And that is that spread of work over time is actually a global. I'm gonna use a computer science term, but that is a global reservation that one of these props has to take. Let's say, for example, just by coincidence, 5 different players on 5 different, completely different parts of the island were all spawning all of these scenes at the exact same time. We don't want to have 5x the cost there. So each of those individual placements that are actually happening are technically spread, like these little guys, are technically spread among anyone who wants to place one of these props, no matter where they are on the island. So theoretically, if it's a really populated server, instead of taking like a quarter of a second for the scene to place itself, it might take a second for the scene to place itself. But it's 100 meters away from you. You're not going to get there in a second. You're not. In fact, you are likely to close 10 meters in a second if you're on horseback on flat terrain. So I guess 12 meters a second. So that's the fact that the server is trying to spread that damage out to avoid a spike isn't really going to affect your play experience. These things will be in place, good to go by the time you get there. The critter spawner has a similar system where it uses a slightly different mechanism, but where it needs to go through the work of spawning an animal. But again, all this animal spawning is very solipsistically happening around individual players. We want to just get ahead of a situation where just coincidentally 30 players need to spawn animals at the exact same time. We don't need all 30 to spawn on one frame and get some gnarly ass spike like that we have to then burn down. So each one of those requests to spawn an animal takes some sort of mutual exclusion token. It's called a mutex, right? So a player's underlying critter spawner says, I would like to spawn an animal over here. It grabs that conch. I keep using these analogs. Does its work and then releases it so that the next player can then grab it. Well, you might see where this is going. Well, what happens if there's an error in the logic that someone goes to grab that token, grab the conch, and then they never release it? Well, it means no animals can ever spawn ever again. And that's precisely what had happened. There was a timing issue where the logic to you grab the conch, you go through the effort of finding out what animal to spawn. That logic to find what animal to spawn failed in a catastrophic way that never kind of returned control to the caller, and then the conch was never released. And that would lock out the entire server from ever spawning animals through typical critter spawns. You would still get critters, quote unquote, spawning like as part of other scenes, but not through the critter spawner system itself. That was just busted. So
unconscionable behavior.
It is unconscionable behavior. Yeah, so that is what happened there. And what was funny, actually speaking of the bots, is when I was getting the bots set up. So I'm like locally on my own server, I got like 40 bots just running around constantly for hours on end while I'm doing other work. I actually hit an error that was the actual bug. During the playtest we patched around it, put a shitty hack on it, but we've actually caught the bots actually caught the actual bug that really happened with those things, and we were able to reason through. Oh, yep, that's exactly how it went down. They've put the science in computer science. Any more questions on this? I was going to open up, do 2 things. I was going to stop the editor and then fly around and show you what are the points in. We talked about spawning these little scenes in front of the player, or spawning animals out in front or around the player. Well, what points in space do we choose as candidates for that? I was going to show that. And then I was going to crack open this moonshine scene so you can see what the artist actually creates before we try to slam it into some grounded environment. Any other questions on this setup before I proceed?
Hit it.
Let's do it. Cool. All right, I'm going to kill the editor, or kill the plane editor. All right, we'll fly around. So notice that little point in space. This is using our what we call VTS, our voxel terrain spawner system, to create a spawn hint. If I hit play again from here, this prop is going to disappear. Those trees and the stick there are probably going to still stick around. Voila, it's gone. So that little campsite mesh is oh, my camera went back here. Come on, you. Come on now. is a candidate point for one of these overworld random encounters. And you can see them everywhere. They're kind of spaced fairly uniformly around the world. And they have different types. So this little campsite, those can be camps. Those could be like a deer carcass with a bunch of vultures overhead. Those could be 12 bunnies, right? These are there's a whole system to choose random ones based on different rules. We talked a bit about like, okay, well, if I have a candidate point like this, I want to spawn one of these scenes. There's a table of all the scenes that exist. Why not? Oops. There it is. Yeah, so here was the moonshine one. There's a regular campsite. There's like a target practice one. The animal trappers, prospector. These are nested. Those other ones. Here's like a bunch of coyotes or wolves or a bear gnawing on some carcass. Here's just a bunch of different sizes of guys who are wandering through the world. And some of these can actually have restrictions on them. So if we go to fish camp, that's number 6, sorry. Crack that one open. You'll see this one must be near water. There's other ones like the overturned cart must be near a road, so on and so forth. So the game says, all right, here's a cool candidate. Here's a constellation of candidate points. If I'm a player and I'm kind of running in this direction, 100 or so meters in front of me, I'll just go over here for illustrative purposes. Here's a bunch of candidate points where these scenes can show up. Once we choose one, we then do the procedural placement to try to sit that thing in the world. In choosing one, we have these little stats, these little things that can filter it. So these ones
Hey,
are
Tim.
not near water. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm so sorry. I know you said this, but I just want to remind everybody that the campfires, I think it's confusing
Yeah.
for people. The campfires are the candidate points that Tim is talking about.
Yeah.
Like we could have used any model for those. We could have just put a pink sphere in or whatever.
It makes the world artists upset if we do that. Yeah, that's why we chose this.
Yeah. So when you're looking across this scene right now, these campfires aren't like art that's placed in the level.
Yeah.
Those are actually like debug indicators for the engineers, specifically Tim, to know that that's a candidate point.
Yeah.
It's the WoW rabbit.
It's the WoW rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah.
They aren't here in the world. Are they in the room with us now? No, they're not. They're not here. But when I go back to the editor view, you can see them show back up again. And I want to see them because I want to understand the density, right? There needs to be enough of them. If they were so sparse, you wouldn't get enough. If they're too dense, it's computationally expensive to find samples because you have to sort through a bunch, right? But that selection rule says, yeah, okay, cool. These ones are near water, so a fish camp can spawn here, but a fish camp can't spawn, over here. Here's, by the way, a different type. These little columns here, these are what we call these mining camps. So these will be overworld mines, and there's 2 types. The what we call the vertical ones, which it's just a hole in the ground that will procedurally create a mine, and then there's the ones that are actually on slopes. Let's see if I can find one over here. Yeah, here's a bunch up here. These ones are on slopes. These are like they're angled mine entrances. So these are all candidate points that the game can choose out in front of players to potentially spawn one of these scenes.
Hey Tim.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know.
No, that's why you're here. I need someone to read chat because I ain't gonna read chat.
Okay, can I share a goofy WoW story with people? I know
Yes.
it's like just a fucking distraction from this, but like, so for those of you who aren't fully keeping up with all of this, when people are saying the campfires are like bunnies in WoW, and I know not everybody has played WoW. In WoW, the designers would take like literally a rabbit animal and make it invisible, and then they'd run a bunch of scripts on it, and the rabbits be listening to the state of the game world, and the game would be controlled through the invisible rabbit, which, by the way, drove the engineers crazy. But if you guys want to hear even more insane shit that we used to do on WoW, by we I mean the designers, in Scholomance, which was one of the max level dungeons in vanilla World of Warcraft, there was a final boss of Scholomance named Dark Master Ganling. I think it was Dark Master Ganling, some name like that. And it was
Yep.
the boss. You would fight him, and then he had these like different rooms off to the sides that he would teleport you into. Um, so in order to like, I scripted all that teleporting and like the doors opening and closing, and the rats in Scholomance, if you notice, there's a bunch of like rats all on the shelves in the crypt. I think it's like one of those rats or maybe two of those rats I made uninteractable and unkillable. So many of the rats are just like normal rats that you can walk up and kill and whatever, but there's like two rats that aren't even invisible. There's two rats that are actually controlling that whole fight. And then the same thing for Molten Core. I forget which I think it might be the I want to say Baron Geddon. It was Baron Geddon the one that passed really fast back and forth. I think it's Baron Geddon, like the one just past Gar. In that room in Molten Core, like the rooms in Molten Core don't really have names, but I think it's where Baron Geddon paths real fast. So just beyond that, there's like 4 or 5 rats sitting on some lava rock in the background. Those are also uninteractable in vanilla WoW. And what they were doing is they were controlling, you know how you had to do the ruins? Sorry, not ruins, runes. For each boss boss had the rune by it, and you had to
Extinguish it with the water. Yeah.
Yes, you had
Oh,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
all of the runes,
Yeah.
and then you could summon Ragnaros. Those rats are listening for the players doing the extinguishing, and those rats are what's tracking the event. So,
Yep.
that's the goofy ways in which game designers abuse all of this shit, and then make people like Tim and Bill like, why did you do that? Do you know the kind of performance like? Because the other part about Invisible Bunnies, by the way, is they're still playing all of their like animation and all of the other data that is required. Like the game doesn't know that it's not supposed to do that. I have one last story, and I know like I'm interrupting and I'm torturing everybody, but for those of you who played the Burning Crusade, and I know not everybody here's a WoW player, but in Burning Crusade, there was one of the first daily quests ever was this, I think it was in Blades Edge Mountains, that you get like on a flying mount, and you would fly through an area and there'd be these flat cannons shooting at you. I don't know if anybody remembers that, like, or
Well, I
Blades
went to
Edge
lunch
Mountain.
with the engineers who had to fix that. I remember this one.
So there was a brilliant game designer named Pat Nagel, who I've spoke about many, many times. And Pat and I actually started as game designers on the same day. And he made that flat cannon quest. So every time a burst of flak happened in the Burning Crusade, he was spawning. What were they called? The big, the Guardians of
It was
Blizzard,
the
Infernals?
Infernal.
Yeah, the Infernals.
It,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was
Infernals.
using the Infernal
Hundreds of them.
model. They were tracking you. You were leaving breadcrumbs as you were flying on that quest. They were leaving breadcrumbs of infernals the whole time behind you. And what we didn't realize is they were never cleaning themselves up or despawning. So as all the servers were up for like, you know, if the server had been up for a week or two without restarting, when you turned on See Invisible as an admin or as a GM, the whole sky was just filled with infernals. And all of those are running like animation and AI and all of that. But Pat was just using it for like, this seems like a good target for flak.
Yeah.
I'll try. I have a screenshot of that, of ruining the server, and I'll put it in our Discord if I can find it.
That's
Sorry,
great.
Tim.
Wasn't there
No, so
one last tangent?
Go ahead,
Oh,
Bill.
go ahead, Tim. No,
I
you
was
go
going to
first.
segue off what Jeff said to talk about this.
Oh yeah, I
but-
have one quick question then. I heard there was like something where either some of those rats became targetable because of maybe a bug or some other issue, or maybe it was QA using a cheat to like just AoE kill stuff, and they broke it because the rats were dead. If they died, their scripts actually stopped playing, so you break the fight. I don't know if that was true or maybe that's just lore.
That is absolutely true. And then also because of the age of WoW, like it's over 20 years old, and how many developers have worked on it over time. Like if I'm a brand new designer and I get invited onto Team 2 to work on World of Warcraft, like I don't know why this
Bug
rat
fix.
rat in Skullomance or in Molten Core is marked unkillable for some reason. I'm like, oh yeah, let me
That's a
just
bug.
clean that up real fast. Like it was terrible game design. It was really bad, dirty scripting.
Load bearing rat. Oh my gosh.
Load bearing rat.
Thank you,
All right.
Johnny Rich.
Back to you, Tim.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. So good segue, right? So we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and we all stand on the trade-offs that our forefathers and mothers had to make in making games, including ourselves as younger game developers. So I did not work on WoW. There are many people on our team who did, many engineers on our team who did work on WoW, and so I know the stories. And my understanding is one of the reasons why the bunnies or the rats, the infernals were the easiest tool to reach for a designer was because they were what were called units, and units are very large, heavyweight game objects in the WoW class hierarchy that give access to a whole bunch of functionality, mostly Lua scripts, spells, that type of stuff. And everything in WoW is a spell under the hood, just as everything in Legend of California is a script. Um, One of the like architectural decisions we made, and some of this there's echoes of this on Overwatch, but they continue all the way through on this project, is do not make in C++ giant heavyweight structures that have high overhead and provide a wide array of functionality. Instead, make very small atoms of functionality that the designers can then mix and match in order to create the game that we need to make. There's one truism. In fact, I would say you want this. I remember Jeff and I talked about this when we were on Titan together. There's a industrious game designer is going to do whatever they can with the tools that they have to see their vision all the way into the game. That's a feature, not a bug. So if your tools are a little too clunky, a little too heavyweight, hard to tune, hard to make performant, that's a liability for the engineers to sort out. The designers should basically have that freedom to do that type of stuff, and they should be enabled to do that type of stuff. So I gave this example a few minutes ago about a component placeable. And this is not a heavyweight C++ structure, but it's an easy thing to reach for when you just need to put something in the world. But it's overkill. The fact that me and a game designer can go and create scripts like this just to tease out the specific atoms of functionality that are necessary to reduce that overhead is an exact response to the architecture of WoW, where it was really hard to do to have like a limited subset of features. You kind of had to have all the features or none. You didn't have that intermediate choice. So when we architected this game, when we gave these tools to these designers, it very much was the smallest possible Lego piece that you could assemble. I was at the lunch with a friend who I was chatting with her about like the bots and all the cool bot stuff we had been doing, and she asked about like the there's a player able to do all this AI behavior. And I'll show that in a few minutes, what the quote unquote player AI behavior looks like. And I kind of challenged her to reword the question, because it's not, we don't have in C++ the concept of a player per se. We have the concept of like a player network connection, but that's it. Like what makes a player is a whole constellation of scripts. And some of those nodes that are used in those scripts are very similar to some of the nodes that are used for some of the AI. But there's nothing to stop us taking AI functionality and putting it on the player, which is how we do our bots, right? Our bots are just lightweight AI functionality scripted on top of our player. So all that flexibility is really, really critical for us. And dude, I am super, super fired up. I really hope we can succeed and get this game out, because I'm really proud of the team and these tools that we have made. I cannot wait to get it into the hands of our players, see what you guys actually can do with it too. All right, with that in mind, here is what Tom authors. So this is the same moonshine camp we saw placed in the world. If you guys can remember from a few minutes ago, or just rewind the stream, this giant tent structure did not spawn in. It just didn't fit. And it's probably just because the slope of the hillside was just a little too, uh, uh, the grade was probably accelerated too fast, and it couldn't actually fit this large structure in there. But this thing is not tagged as necessary, so it's not going to be rejected, right? Whereas I think this one, yeah, this prop here is tagged as necessary. I think this one might be too. Oh, it's not. I should probably tag this as necessary. These are all storytelling props. Anywho, this is what our artists will cobble together, and we take all this relative placement information and then use that to dynamically place these things over on the overworld.
And the terrain and the materials are just meaningless because that's just Unreal height map.
Yeah, this is not even our voxel terrain.
And our world is voxel terrain, so that could have just been like a world grid, but for whatever reason, we have some materials on it.
Yeah.
Also, Tim, I think I confused people, and this is my bad. The campfires aren't really invisible bunnies in our game. It's a little bit different. The campfires are more of an editor shortcut model for everybody to see where the candidate points are.
Yeah.
So we have the same thing. For those of you who have watched other of our streams, if you see one of the strongholds, for example, and there's just like that plain gray model of the bird, which was Andrew modeled himself, one of our engineers. It was wonderful modeling job. And we also have like a sniper that's just plain gray. So the same, like we have a lot of like placeholder models that we'll just use in the editor that means something to us internally, which is very different than like a live thing that's listening, waiting to activate, or even worse, like in the examples I gave of the bunnies and the rats and all of those are just constantly running scripts on them.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's waiting for someone or not, it's anytime you spin up Scholomance, it's going to be running scripts.
Yeah, which is we want to avoid that. We scene manage aggressively. Only tick things, only do work for things a player can consume.
And this is the evolution of that idea, right? Like the reason WoW designers did that was because you didn't have any other like tool to reach for to just say, I want this thing to exist that I can play scripts on that a player doesn't need to interact with. So you make it a full NPC. So for us, that campfire is a very lightweight thing that's just the candidate point, and it only does exactly what we need it to. Giving it the campfire is just as a human, when you're in the editor, you need a way to know where it is in the world. It can't just be empty air. So you give it a model that you can recognize, but that's the only purpose for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here I've back in the game, I found a flat piece of terrain, and I've hand spawned this same scene. All right, so you can see here it had room for that additional prop, so that showed up. And it looks like it spawned some AI too this time. So there you go.
You also, like in the editor, I think that ammo is actually just a small chest, but we have on the channels, we have the ability to adjust on this stuff. So sometimes it can be a small chest, sometimes a medium chest, sometimes ammo, as an example. And it's all like the game has awareness of what tier the player's in, what location the player's in, so we can update all of the loot as well.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so just like the little campfires are hints in the world. Those are procedurally placed by a system. I'll go back to that in a sec. These are hand placed, right? So these are all potential spawn points for different types of loot. And then our designers can choose, like Jeff said, what is in those containers based on the tier this thing appears in, and also how many will spawn in for one of these scenes.
The one he has selected right there, he has the food basket. That's a designer saying, I always want this to be food here. Or Tom does these a lot too. But if you guys notice the one on the barrel up, like where he just has selected, when we were in the game, that turned into ammo instead. It was like a little ammo box. So that's just controlled entirely by designers and script through what we call data picker and loot channels.
Yeah.
And then the camp supplies, that's just showing different locations that the camp supplies can be, and those will always be camp supplies.
Right.
They
And there'll
they
only
will
be
never.
one of them on one of these scenes.
Yep, it'll
Yeah.
just pick one of those locations.
Yeah. So here's like
From
the
YouTube,
candidate
someone is
locations.
Skiddy was asking, or Skidla, are the candidate points human placed, like designer placed, or are they procedurally generated?
These candidate points, these are hand placed. Yeah.
The
Whereas
loot.
The
So
campfire ones.
the campfire ones, that's you and Penny job, right,
yeah,
Tim?
yeah. Well, I mean, Ryan did a lot of the code, but yeah, these little guys. The island is too big for us to hand place these things. So these are placed on a series of rules called voxel terrain spawn. Actually, I think it's vignette. It's its own thing. So here we go. Now we're really going deep. This is fun.
Yeah,
These
the
are
VTS
gameplay
system is
VTS. And yeah,
amazing.
these are gameplay vignettes. So gameplay vignettes have. I'm really pushing my luck here. Here, guys. Here we go. Here we go. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun. Um, let's change this to obelisk. So like Jeff mentioned, these could be any model. We chose to do the campfire because it's subtle. And if you're a world builder and you don't really care about these things, um, it's a lot easier to work when you don't have a bunch of blue obelisks in the world, but same idea, right? So here's us showing those hints as giant blue obelisks. But you can see here there's a certain density in play. There's also like they don't go into the water. Um, we have roughly uniform density, but with some noise on top of it. Uh, you also notice these things tend to spawn near flat terrain. You don't get blue obelisks on the slopes here. You don't get blue obelisks on the slopes here. Maybe every once in a while you might fit one in. That's just to increase the odds of success. If these points in space are candidates to create like a campsite, which are our wider scenes, you want it to succeed, right? If the angles are too sharp, then it won't succeed. It's just a waste of processing power to try to fit one in there. But if I wanted to say, actually, you know what, this density is too high, I can actually come in here and say like, here we're gonna picture this thing. You guys seeing way behind the curtain now. Um, yeah, I can drop the density of these guys. It takes a while to refresh. Come on. Oh, did it already happen? Might have already happened. No, it didn't. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, so uh, I can go way low. So I'm editing some properties over on this side. With these terrain spawn rules, I can change all sorts of different attributes about these things. And there's different classes of them. Right now I'm showing off what we call these gameplay points. There's also the mining points that are on the slopes here. These have special rules to say like only spawn these on the slopes, so on and so forth. But
Everyone in chat, there's
this
lots of
system is
questions in chat
yeah, so this is the exact
about.
same system we use to place all the trees, all the rocks, um, all of the hints for critter spawns, which I'll see if I can find one. They're really tiny. Where are you, buddy? There's one right there. Now they all use this exact same system where we get to specify this grammar for how these things actually position themselves in the world. Um, and then they're also technically tied to different um, biomes, right? So you could have a rule for spawning redwood trees, but it's bound to a certain biome, so you have to paint that biome to get those redwood trees. For these gameplay ones, we don't care. They're kind of across the whole world, no matter what. Um, although suspiciously right in here, there's deliberately a big bald spot because we're doing some bespoke painting. So even if I crank the density of these spawn points to something truly insane, um, you'll see that bald spot in the middle because it's painted as a bald spot. Go ahead, Bill.
Nope, you were covering it. People were just asking to be clear. They were trying to wrap their head around what was hand placed versus what was sort of proc gen, and you
Yeah.
were just going through it,
Yeah.
so you got it.
Yeah. So at a high level, what for the world, what is hand placed is the sculpting of the terrain and the painting of the different attributes of the terrain. So the attributes of the terrain could be things like biome, which will dictate what type of flora will appear. You also paint a climate region. So climate region will dictate like what type of weather systems you'd expect in that part of the world. So you would have a different climate region for the Mojave Desert than you would have for Monterey Bay, right? Because they would choose different weather systems. And then you also paint habitat. So you might have an arid habitat or a forested habitat or a beach habitat, and that can be used by different game systems. That's predominantly used by all of our animal spawning. So like you don't get a tortoise out in the redwood forest. You only get those out in the desert or never. You don't get you get deer in some forests, elk in others. So those are all different. Those are all different orthogonal layers. Sometimes they tend to line up. You tend to see an arid habitat line up with the desert biome, but not necessarily. They can have a little bit of freedom, and that's deliberate. Other game systems can use that too. I think right now habitat's only used by the animals, but there's nothing to stop. Well, sorry, it's kind of used by these overworld scenes too, because we will spawn different types of prey, right? If you ever spawn a bunch of like a herd of longhorn sheep, like that'll only be in the mountain habitats, whereas you get a herd of bison out in the plains. Those are all different.
Somebody's asking if we use tools like Gaia or World Creator. I believe we've experimented
All
with
of them.
both. They're like we've
And-
had versions of all of those. I don't even know. Will is the one who uses those tools the most. I think he's more settled on World Creator these days than Gaia, but
I think
he's
so.
gone back and forth through both of them.
Yeah, and then Penny has written a bunch of custom the things that Gaia and World Creator do, a bunch of custom Houdini stuff to do like erosion lines and other type of operations. So I know Gaia and World Builder both do those types of stuff, but I think we've taken that in house at this point in time.
And related, sorry to tack on.
Yeah.
People are asking about PCG, which I think is Unreal's proc gen stuff, and I believe it doesn't get usable or shippable until 5.7 or 5.8, and I don't think we're using it, but maybe
we're not using it at all, and that's just a timing thing. I don't know if we would have used it, but it didn't show up until we were well into our own custom solution by the time that showed up. So it just wasn't available to us. And then I don't know if it's shipped a game yet. Kind of on policy, we try not to use a technology that hasn't shipped by somebody else, ideally Epic.
Yeah, Penny said we're not using Gaia anymore, but we tried it early on.
Okay.
We did a lot of just experimenting with different things. And because we're not using it doesn't mean it's not great. Like there were a lot of amazing tools that just for whatever reason didn't work into our workflow, but are still really cool. It's kind of like the old, which is better, Maya or Blender, and it just depends who you talk to and what they're trying to do and what's their workflow and preference. Or to really date myself, like back in the day when people would say, "Would you like more like 3ds Max or Maya?" It's one of those things.
Right.
Vim Remax. Oh shit!
Wow, Jesus, holy war, holy crap! Here we go.
Word Perfect or
Notepad.
Word? Who's gonna win the battle?
Well, my dad was an attorney, so Word Perfect for life. Yeah, I'm sure he has a tattoo. All right.
I true story. I hacked Bard's Tale using Word Perfect.
No way.
Yeah, because I'm a dipshit and I don't know what I'm doing, and I wanted to rename one of my characters. So I inserted, like it was back in the day with the floppy disk, I put the floppy disk in, and then WordPerfect had this mode called show code. I don't know if anybody remembers this or even knows what I'm talking about. And like my character's name, let's just say it was like William or something like that. I'm like, oh, sweet. All I got to do is find where it says William, and I'm just going to change it to Bob instead. And like immediately the more technical people know about how I just destroyed that character, because like you can't just go in and like change William to Bob.
Yeah,
with
can't change the schema. Yeah.
Nope. And I ruined the whole thing. And then I logged in, and sure enough, my character was there. It was now named Bob instead of William. And Bob, I was panicked at first because Bob had like minus $1 million gold or whatever, and I'm like, oh no, now I don't have any money. But because I didn't understand computer science very well, I didn't realize that actually I have infinite money. Like the more I spent money in Bard's Tale, the more money I would make. So yeah, thanks to WordPerfect for that. Go on, Tim. Say something smart because I'm just digging myself a hole.
No, this is perfect. You're vamping. I like it. No, I'm trying to boot up a client. So I'm running my own server and client here. Here's a server log. Look at it go. The server has been empty for a bit, but I'm going to jump in and we're going to look at some of our new bots, what we call Autobots, and I hope we don't get sued. And there's our character. Hit R enough times.
They're called automatic bots.
Automatic bots. Is it Hasbro? Why am I calling out the company name? This feels foolish.
I think you're just really lining it up.
Yeah, just keep going, Tim.
It's parody, right? It's parody. Yeah, so like I mentioned, we wanted the bots to behave more like how players actually behave. And one of the things I mentioned was they really need to spend a fair bit of time just crossing the island, just either on foot or on horseback. Just choose the direction you go. So that was one of the big refinements. But we also wanted to be able to say, like, well, how much time does a player spend? Sorry, I'm going to move some windows around again. How much time does a player spend spinning plates at the ranch, or going to a POI, or going to an outpost? So what I've described is these high-level bot behaviors, and I've given them a percentage to say, like, you should be spending, you know, of all these different behaviors, you should be spending like 8% of your time doing this one. And what I can do is look at actual telemetry of actual playtests to see what actual humans actually do, and then use those numbers to tweak what the bot should actually do to give us more representation of what they do. That said, the bots also need to be fairly cheap to process on the server, because we're really looking for the cost of player behaviors, not the cost of AI behaviors for 100 bots or whatever. We also want to make sure that, and so by virtue of that, they're fairly low fidelity for lots of the stuff that they do. So I'm going to show off some of the bots, and you're going to see them running in straight lines, maybe running into trees, running into walls. Don't
Can
worry.
you drop your game audio slightly, Tim?
Yeah, don't worry. They will teleport if they've been running against a wall for too long. But yeah, so the fidelity is an important bit, because we can't afford to make them do high fidelity AI behaviors, because then that just shows up on the profile as AI behavior, which players don't do. Players players are just sending inputs down the wire. So we try as much as possible to have our bots fabricate like the inputs, and minimize their use of AI stuff. Okay, the other thing that we mentioned was, you know, we have a hard enough time fielding a full server with the staff that we have. We have a significantly harder time fielding what we expect a full month-long server player count to be. Even if we have our concurrency at 100, you might have 400 or 500 players go through that server, only 100 max concurrent at a time. And those 500 players that go through that server are going to leave artifacts in the world. They're going to leave ranches. They're going to leave tents. They're going to change the status of things, and that status, we need to track that, because that could have a potential perf load on the server we have to deal with. There's an adage when it comes to profiling and optimizing code, is you're almost always surprised by what needs to be optimized. And it makes sense if you have a fairly senior staff. When they're working on a feature, they're usually quite mindful of what is a performance risk, and they architect it in such a way that it isn't a performance risk. So it's like a survivorship bias, where, like, yeah, the only stuff you discover that's a performance risk is stuff you didn't expect to be a performance risk, because if you expected it, you wouldn't have coded it that way. That's why the bots are like, just do player behaviors at a high level. Don't try to do anything terribly specific at an overwhelming frequenzy, because that's not where we're going to find the surprises. We're going to find the surprises kind of at the scale we have a hard time testing. All right, so I'm going to run. How many? I'll do 100 Autobots, 40 at a time. So one thing we haven't optimized yet is player creation. So everything's frozen now because I just spawned 40 players at the exact same time. We will optimize player creation. That is actually really expensive, but we should see in a moment, as soon as the server. There we go. Here they go. They're coming. Sorry, I got to catch up to the servers stalling really bad now. But you can see off the beach, they do what players do off the beach, which is they kill stuff and they loot stuff. And we want the bots to kind of move or progress through the world a little more aggressively than players do. We need to run these things overnight and give us perf reports. So we need them to use as much of the game as humanly possible, and there's enough gameplay here for more than like a night's work. Oh, these guys having a grand old time. Look at them looting, chopping, doing fun stuff. They don't do anything terribly sophisticated. Oh my god, the new ragdolls. They don't do anything sophisticated for combat right now. They just have like an AoE damage buff, which is just launching seagulls. Oh, that's the best thing ever. We just replaced all the bird ragdolls. We have not gotten to seagulls and crows yet. They're a little busted. What's this? 27 is doing something interesting. No, he's gonna go chop a tree. Okay, lame. One of these guys, at some point in time, these people are going to consider themselves done with harvesting off the beach, and they're going to move to the next phase of tier 1 behavior, which is go out and maybe attack a zone, go out and maybe attack a POI, maybe go to an outpost. So let's show that. So I'm going to show the debug. So here is a little debug view of all the bots that are running. I set this to spawn 100 total, but only allow 40 at a time. Those of you programmers out there know we always start at 0. All the cool kids start at 0, so 0 to 39 are the bots that are currently online. You see these timers ticking down, so like Autobot 9, he's only going to stay online for another, I'm going to teleport to him, for another 623 seconds, after which point in time they will make themselves eligible to log out. They'll finish their current task. Right now he's just harvesting the area. This is like harvesting coming off the beach. And then when they're done with their current task, they'll log out. And then another bot, probably Autobot 40, Autobot 70, who knows, someone else who's in the queue will take their spot, right? So with a console command, I can just say, yeah, give me 100 Autobots total, 40 concurrent. I want to be able to say Autobot soak 600, 100, so 100 concurrent, 600 total players, and let that guy run for 3 days. That would be awesome. And that's why we have the system, so we can do those types of things, and we can start to look at the type of performance. All right, Autobot 8 is doing something cool. Autobot 8 is done with their first task and is now headed to a POI. He looks like he found a vignette on the way, so he's looting up that vignette, and he's killed the deer inside.
You better go for the camp supplies, or else.
I'm gonna take the camp supplies.
What?
What? They don't prioritize. I mean, I should fix that. Camp supplies tend to have more storage in them. They actually, their performance-wise, cost a little bit more to loot. I should make them prioritize that. Where's he going? Okay. Scaring the deer. But yeah, you can see here, like, this is a full server. This is doing what full servers, I should say full for the current watermark that we hit for the last alpha. I want to continue to up that number until we get to a healthy concurrency. But this is awesome for us. This we can profile against it. We can dial in the numbers to whatever we think is appropriate for the profile we're trying to test. We can even tune them. Let's say, for example, we're working on optimizing, I don't know, AI behavior, biped AI behavior. I could tune a local version of the Autobots where like all they do is just attack POIs all day long. So they're stressing the biped AI behavior as much as possible, or tune them where they just go to their ranch and mine all the time. Because I'm working on, I'm trying to target one specific behavior for optimization. And they try to do it in a way that's representative of how players actually work. Come on, Autobot 8. Go somewhere cool.
Again, with the no camp supply looting.
Really? It's shocking. Oh God.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I'm
There's
stuck
a scene.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, where's he at? So he's still wandering. He's still just looking for stuff around the vignette. Again, these are not very smart. They're just enough to... Right. All three of these guys have decided to probably go to the same POI. This should be fun. This is him...
So there was a...
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
When they do these long travels, they don't use any AI pathfinding. That's way too expensive. They just choose a direction and hit W. And if they get stuck for a while, they just teleport to the next kind of waypoint. He'll teleport some distance ahead. Yeah, sorry. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, no, so the Twitch chat thinks we should have Twitch plays The Legend of California Autobots. So we got to plumb Twitch chat into AI, controlling Autobot behavior, and then we just stream that as a permanent stream. So
as long
I know
as
what I'm trying to work on.
That's true. As long as Twitch can promise to do representative human behavior, I'm down with that. That's great.
I mean, that's kind of what the alpha is, right?
Twitch plays.
I mean, that's the whole point of the alpha. We need you guys to hammer it again. Like, I
do.
can't wait. I hope we're in a better spot.
Yep. So Autobot 8, he's done with this vignette. He's just waiting to teleport. It's getting full of arrows. This is great. I want to see one get to an actual POI. Who's close? Oh, you made it. This guy made it. Yeah, so the POI behavior, again, we want to avoid having to path. I'm going to ghost a little bit so we can see. So what they do is they follow, we procedurally build like a little spline for them to quote unquote follow slowly. And they kind of like, it's kind of a fake like, oh, and then they reposition, and then they're constantly damaging AI, and they're constantly temporarily looting stuff from time to time. And then they kind of return to the spline. So they'll, again, it's primitive, but it gets the point across. It actually gets like representative performance from the game server, even though it looks a little weird. But that's all the things we need. So you'll see this
And
person.
how long does it take for them to get? Because I know I've seen them on horseback.
Yeah.
Do they actually have to like earn the money and buy the horse, or is that more of something you control?
Yeah, I control it. I just do. I think the rules when they hit tier 2, they just get a mule automatically.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So tier 2, and the way they hit the tier is, again, we're trying to. This is an accelerated play session. So I have tuning. I don't have the editor open, but I could show like I have tuning that says, all right, tier 1 for a Autobot lasts randomly between like 5 minutes and 8 minutes or whatever. It's probably a little longer than that. Or actually, I think what it is specifically is you need to harvest off the beach and then go attack an outpost or a zone, and then go attack a stronghold or a zone, and then go to an outpost. And congratulations, you've beat tier 1. So you graduate your tier 2, give you a mule, and then your immediate task is, all right, cool, now go off and create a ranch. And that's how you start tier 2. So I don't know if we'll see it on these time scales. We can keep answering questions, but if we see these guys graduate to tier 2, we'll see someone on their way to go create a ranch. Another cool thing
Tim,
about
what was
this
on
dashboard. Oh, go ahead.
let me just ask you a question. What can you give an example? Like, obviously, we got a lot of data coming out of the alpha about stuff that was expensive.
Yeah.
Was there stuff from the bots that showed us data that we didn't have from alpha yet that surprised you?
It's yes and no. I would love to say. I'm sure there's one or two examples of like, oh, yep, that's novel behavior. Certainly some new novel systems that immediately showed up with the bots that we just remediated immediately. A lot of what the bigger spikes were that the bots showed, I went back and reviewed the old profiles, and they were there as well, but for whatever reason, it didn't click that was actually what was happening. So it was more just like more opportunities to see the game at scale gave me more data points to say like, oh, yep, shoot, level streaming really is a huge bottleneck, which is why we've completely rewritten level streaming, and that's going to be landing in the build on Monday. Can't wait. Things like that.
Have you seen like a use case yet of validating? We saw a behavior in alpha.
Yeah.
We fixed it. Then we used the bots to validate that it's no longer expensive.
Yeah, we had about a dozen of those. So a lot of the ones with discovery, the example I showed in the editor earlier, was like we saw that in the alpha, we reproduced it with the bots, we fixed it, and it disappeared off of the bot report the following day. A lot of stuff with the placeable thing, where it's using placeable to place all of these things is completely wasteful. That's why placeable was so expensive. Rip that out, and then you get that time back. What other ones? There was a bunch of land claim stuff. Land claims are your tents and your ranches. So big spikes that would happen when people entered or left land claims. Those were also, we saw it in the alpha, we reproduced it with the bots, we fixed it, and saw it go away. So it's been really fun. It's like the thesis has hit pretty damn well.
Tim, can you also talk a little bit about obviously collision affects more than just client, it's client and server.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about some of the client performance as well, and maybe some of the collision stuff?
Yeah.
Which we're not seeing so much of today, but just talk about it because that's also great performance gains that we're getting.
Yeah, so we had pretty reasonably good. I've made lots of games. I want to give credit where credit's due to the artists for reasonably good. Let's get stuck on bad path data for a couple seconds. reasonably good collision to start with, but we did notice there were some props that we had authored that had very high collision density, and that collision density has an effect on server and client performance both. So collision is the geometric data description of what things are solid. So in the game simulation, when you're moving a character or shooting a bullet, we know what to collide with, like what should stop bullets, what should stop a character. We have done a lot of optimizations both for human beings to consume. So we have these reports that spit out like, hey, these assets, like this rock is potentially problematic. It's a very high collision density. It's going to be expensive to solve against. It's going to take a lot of memory. And we also completely rewrote how we store collision. For those of you who watched some earlier streams, we've mentioned we don't use Epic's physics system. We use our own physics system, which means we don't need to use Epic's collision. We can build our own versions of collisions that are slightly more optimized. So we went ahead and did that. Where is this guy going? Oh, he fell through the world. That'll happen sometimes. Yeah, so we spent a lot of energy not just building reports for artists to act on in order to simplify our collision. We also built some visualizers. Sometimes you might have authored an asset that has appropriate collision at the scale that it was authored at, but you could place that asset and shrink it to fit your needs in a particular level. So we have a little visualizer inside of our levels. It draws like a purple box on it to say, hey, by the way, this thing is actually fairly expensive from a collision standpoint at this scale, so you might want to work on it. Oh, here we go. Someone's going to go find their ranch. I'm going to go follow them. I mentioned we're rewriting level streaming. You can see we have not fixed all the spikes yet. That's what we're feeling here with that jitteriness. That is big server load. Or it could be reporting. We are writing out reports, so that's probably what that is too. Whatever, it's all science. We're rewriting the level streaming, and we're taking advantage of the fact that we have our own custom collision solution to speed that up, to make that way less memory intensive and way more load much faster on both server and clients. Don't try this at home though. Writing your own physics system is a lot of work. This guy has a mule. He's here too.
Here's a question. Was it a lot to learn going from the tools Blizz learn to UE? Not really. Yes and no. And it sort of depends on the discipline. If you're artist, engineer, designer, to be honest, Unreal for content creators, someone like artists or designers, is extremely easy to transition to because there's such a wealth of information online. So you can watch YouTube videos. Epic has all the documentation. Like when we were working on World of Warcraft or we were working on Overwatch, there's no manual anywhere for the Overwatch engine or the WoW engine. It's all internal tribal knowledge. Eventually, over time, both the WoW team and the Overwatch team hired technical writers who did start to write documentation on how the editor worked. But when you're one of the early people on the team, you're just using the tool as it's coming online. So transitioning to Unreal, like an existing engine with existing information out in the public, is actually quite easy. I think engineers would have a different answer for what their experience is. Tim, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's weird. I had used Unreal back from Unreal 1 when I was like in high school all the way through UE3 on Medal of Honor. So I wanted to point out, like, this thing is constantly writing reports out while it's running, and those actually have overhead, but it's worth it because then I can actually inspect those reports and deliver that. But from a tech standpoint, Overwatch was my first time in a long time that I had a chance to work on a proprietary game engine that was written in-house by the owned entirely and written by the people that were working on that game. And that was exciting and challenging for me because prior to that I'd worked on like sports games where we had some hand-me-down engine from the last person who had the license, or I was doing Unreal or Quake, on prior projects as well. So it was I learned a lot. When you're kind of fully accountable to the engine soup to nuts, you wind up understanding what type of trade-offs engine makers have to make to make their games. Getting onto Unreal, of course, after years and years working on proprietary technology, was both a blast from the past. Like, oh, yep, I remember this from UE3. Cool, this is nice. And then I'll be delicate about this, but it was you realize, like, okay, Epic is on the hook to make a game engine that first and foremost can make Fortnite, which was true back on UE3. Right, that was a game engine that was made for Gears of War, and UE2 was a game engine that was made for UT 2K3 and 2K4. So if your game looks a lot like Fortnite or Gears of War before that, you're gonna have a good time. But if it doesn't, you're gonna have to crack it open and actually make some changes to meet your game's needs. And that's 100% the case that happened here. And we're a really weird marriage of, yeah, our game isn't Fortnite, not even close. Even though it's a big open world FPS, it's not even close. And we have a lot of engineers who are used to working on and owning and writing proprietary technologies that we took the chance to write a bunch of custom stuff, and we've written a ton of custom stuff on top of this engine. So I think we're a unique or rare setup of engineers who are comfortable with writing proprietary technology, but realize, like, if we were to write an engine from scratch, we would run out of money before an artist could ever start to work. So
Yeah,
we very much appreciate. Yeah.
It takes years to write a game engine, and as somebody, I don't write code. I'm not the guy who makes the engine, but I've been on teams that have written engines from scratch multiple times, and it's sort of a kiss curse. Like, on the one hand, every engineer I've ever met who works on games always wants to write their own engine. And usually in their spare time when they go home at night, they're all working on their own engine anyway.
That's
Like,
true.
that's like a very common thread. And sort of the way anybody else does something's wrong and the way they would have done it is right. So most of them want to do their own engine. And would prefer it most of the time. It's very time consuming. And I'll give you guys a weird example. As, like, I consider myself a customer of the game engine. I'm not the guy who's having to write all the code, but as somebody who's trying to make a game in that game engine, we were working on a project called Titan, which was the predecessor to Overwatch, and we were building a game engine from scratch. I remember having to wait months to get a color picker in the game. And that's the kind of thing that everybody just takes for granted, of, like, oh, picking a color. Like, everybody's thinking about these, like, advanced rendering techniques and netcode and how it handles assets and all of that. But the most basic stuff, like getting a transform widget or a color picker, you're just starting from such a point of not being able to do anything for years. Like, I still remember to this day the first time, like, we had the engine rendered anything, or two clients could connect to the same server. Those were like monumental milestones that happened months, if not years, into those projects. And it's very, very painful as you're just waiting to make a game, waiting for all of those features to come online.
Meanwhile, the engineers are having a blast because they're like, oh man, no one's asking me for color pickers. I'm just sitting here coding up a pathfinder. It's great. Yeah, it's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, and I want to say too, because I'm reading like a bunch of the comments. I know it's very common for gamers, like some of whom don't make games at all, to just kind of bash on Unreal. Like, oh, Unreal, it's a heavy engine. Whatever. Unreal is wonderful, and Epic is a wonderful company who supports Unreal and people making Unreal games. Like, they do a phenomenal job. It's not a matter, like, if you've played an Unreal game that didn't look good or didn't perform well, that's more on the development team that made it than on the engine. They're like, if you think about so many of the games that come out are all using Unreal, and they don't all have the same performance, and they don't all have the same look to them. And half the look is graphics optimization and graphics features, and the other half of a look is just pure art direction. And those are things I think a lot of players, like, they're quick to take to Reddit and just sort of bash, like, oh, a brand new game came out, it's on Unreal and my frame rate's bad. And they're like, somehow it's Unreal's fault. And I'm like, I think that's, I don't know. I think that's very unfair. I think that's a very unfair thing to do.
Yeah, it is. It is unfair to say. So Unreal's a gigantic piece of software, right? And there's a lot of features. And Unreal, if you're a game maker and you're going to use Unreal, all the features are turned on by default. The analogy I give is like, you go to Best Buy to go buy a TV. All the TVs are cranked on their settings because they're trying to get you to buy it. Unreal's the same way. And Epic will be the first ones to tell you. In fact, we're meeting with them next week because they are very gracious with their time. Like, hey, talk to us about your game. Like, what does your game need? Okay, cool. You need this type of performance. Awesome. Turn that off. Turn that off. Turn that off. Or what's your art style? What's your art direction? Well, you don't need this. You don't need that. Right. So they're very they do a great job of helping you out to make sure that you meet the needs that your game has. But yeah, it's daunting because it's a huge 30-year-old piece of technology that has had a tremendous number of hours put into adding features to it.
We have, like, this is not the same, but it's sort of weird and related. Like, I just had to swap video cards last night because me and one other person on the team are the only ones that have a 5070. And on the 5070 specifically, there's a weird GPU crash and also like a weird artifacting. Like, I get these crazy red and blue, like, blinking. It almost looks like police lights. And it has something to do with certain shaders and I think specular. I don't really know what's causing it. We don't know what's causing it. But, like, our graphics programmers are in touch with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is very curious. They're sending our graphics programmer a 5070 so they can debug it together because NVIDIA is going to run into the same problem on some other game at some point. So it's not like, oh, the 5070 is a bad card. It's just we're doing brand new things nobody else has done before. So of course we're going to run into, like, weird stuff. And these companies like Unreal or NVIDIA are extremely gracious and extremely helpful to us. You know, you think about, like, we're just this brand new 30-some person team, and, like, NVIDIA's reaching out to help us fix a bug in our game. Or Epic is reaching out to help us fix a bug in our game. You know, as much as everybody likes to bash on these companies, it's amazing what they do. And I really appreciate it.
This guy's still trying to find his ranch. I don't know if anyone has found one yet.
This bot, we should name this the chip bot, because this is like what I do. I'll ride around for 8 hours before I found the ranch. You know, just like, it's got to be perfect. I need to be as central as possible with trees everywhere. You know, and, like, meanwhile I could have been, like, done with the game, but I'm still riding around because I've got that FOMO of the perfect ranch spot going on.
I think it's equal odds that. So when they go to choose a point to go found a ranch, I think it's equal odds tier 2 or 3. I don't think I have anyone in tier 4. Maybe actually it might be equal odds tier 1, 2, or 3. So this guy's obviously going to tier 2. He's in tier 2 now. He just crossed over. Oh man, he might lose his horse. Yep, there goes his horse.
We call that the Tim Ford, riding through the ambush posse like that.
Yeah.
That's me just auto running, tabbed out.
Yeah.
Looking at server performance. Whoops.
Yeah.
And then you get Tim Forded right there.
Yeah. He's gonna have his vengeance though. Look at him go. They start dropping like flies. This is the AoE damage thing. I do want to. I do want to get the player actually shooting. Not that there's any mechanical difference in player shooting versus AI shooting, so it doesn't give us much more curve. But yeah, I also don't have the players dying. There's still a lot of work to do on the bots to get more coverage, but it's already.
I like he stopped to loot right there.
Yeah. He
Fucking awesome.
does. He'll kill him and loot him.
That's me and Rust. Like, as the biggest battle is happening, it's like, dude, don't loot. You know, I watch these like pro Rust players like Alone in Tokyo, and they have such good loot discipline. And the whole time I'm thinking like, I would have looted that crate. Like, I don't care if the firefight's happening. Like, I would have looted it right there.
The bots also have a much faster horse respawn time. They don't do a great job protecting the horse. I didn't want to put their horse in God mode because I want their horses to die and ragdoll and all that fun stuff. But the 5-minute cooldown was a little too long on representing the perf. So there's some cheats like that we do, just to keep things moving, you know.
Is it weird for you developers to have users like us who are trying to absorb every tiny bit from these streams, or do you find it cool? It's awesome. No one else is ever interested in what we
No, I can't tell my kids. Like,
Yeah.
whatever, Dad.
have fun at Thanksgiving dinner. Like, what do you do again? Like, what is that? Like, no one understands, and no one gives a shit. At best, you get is like, oh, my kid plays Minecraft, and you're like, yeah, that's exactly what we do. You know.
Yep.
So you just play games all day, right? Yeah.
That's
right.
what we
Yeah.
do. Just play games all day. This scene here, by the way, this I think is what is it, Mine C, with all these little placeables. This was the one that really had the mega spike. And I'm not going to debase myself. I'm not going to ask Tom to reduce it. I'm like, no, this is a Tim problem. I will make this work. So we have the first salvo of optimizations for placing all these things in right now. Next week when we get the new level streaming stuff in, I'm going to do another version that's going to be even faster. It's going to be great.
We
Come
just
on,
added
Autobot 18. Oh, go ahead.
We just added a new feature that I can't remember if I mentioned it in the blog or not, because I feel like that was ages ago. But when you found your ramp now,
is that the feature?
when the albino bear,
Well, this will be fun.
I like he just went circus bear and just he was ready.
He just got right back on his dead horse.
Oh, what was that? He just got on the dead horse.
Ship it.
But we just added a feature to founding a ranch. Eric actually added this. It's pretty cool. We now give you a bonus, like if you're close to an outpost, you don't have to pay the stagecoach fare to come to that outpost. But if you're away from the outpost, like in the wilderness, we now reduce your fast travel cooldown a bunch, because before it felt like always the right thing to do was build near like some sort of shop or outpost or whatever. And we really wanted to give you an incentive to, like, you know, those times where you find the really beautiful area, but it's not near anything. We wanted that to feel really good. And Eric is a brilliant designer, so he has a much more advanced system than that. Like, we actually had like 3 buffs and 1 buff. Like the buffs had all these different categories, and we have that design in our back pocket if we want to evolve it further. But I think just as a design team, we were like, let's start with like a really simple version of it first and see how it plays, and then we can evolve it from there. Because if you get too nutty with a system like that, there will become some meta, like, you know, everybody builds by the Salton Sea because of X, Y, and Z reasons. So that's something we'll probably keep evolving over time.
I should have spawned that albino bear. He kept killing my guy's horse.
Attack any of the NPCs at the POIs. Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite strategies is training bears and bisons on the POIs.
Or on the team while we're having
Or on
voice
the
chat
team.
meetings.
Training. I think that's like my EverQuest background.
This training.
It's training. It's just part of the game.
Let's see my right click to. Been playing too much Windrose. It's right click, Tim. Alright, I remember now. Where's my boy?
when this game goes into early access, we set up an official forum for feedback and bug reports. That I don't know. Our Discord right now is the best place to give feedback. We'd love to get a Reddit going. I know there's already a Reddit. We just like to grow it and engage with it more. I don't know if we'll do internal forums. And to be honest, on bug reports and feedback, both, I know I've talked a lot with Josh Layshock about this. We'd both love to get some sort of internal mechanism on the game. Like my favorite bug and feedback things are like you're playing the game and you just do like /bug or /feedback, and then you can enter it right there without having to like go out to some other thing. We had a bug report. Bug report in the Discord was pretty good for the alpha. I think we can evolve it a bunch, and the feedback felt a little heavy. And so I want to figure out some way to make it easier to report feedback. Do legendary animals have set spawn pointers? It's completely random, but they have requirements, like biome requirements. They won't just spawn anywhere. They have to spawn where animals of that type would spawn.
Yeah.
So like the white stag, for example, it won't show up in the desert.
Only spawns on Alcatraz. Whoops.
Yeah, it did. We did have White Stag Island, so.
I forgot to mention, Mike did a huge pass on the coloration of the sunsets. So we're getting a little more of those pinks on the oranges. Full of screenshots.
And Tim, thanks to Discord, there's now a poly market that says, "Will Autobot 18 fall down a well?" And according to Polymarket, it's looking at 81%. It's going to happen.
There's oh god, I think guys need to drive those odds way down. Because
yeah, I think if you would have,
I want to make a ton of money off that bet.
Yeah, I think if you would have said like, is its horse going to die? That would be like 100% of it.
It's the lanterns thing. I think I might know what the bug is now. Yep, they are. Okay, I know what the bug is now. Aha.
Yeah. Where's the Jira now?
I think the bug is
Speaking of gambling, I'm assuming we can play card game. We don't have. I think with the theme of our world, people would love to get like blackjack and slot machines and poker. We don't have that yet. It's not an immediate plan. I doubt we'll have it in time for early access, but I know someday somebody will wander off and try to make card games because it just fits our world so much.
It's like the Gwent from The Witcher, right? Was Gwent the game from that? Yeah.
Bot 18, by the way, his bags are full, I can tell. Oh god. Anyway, that's how he lost his mule again. He's trying to loot, and it's not working.
Look at that.
Come on, bot 18. You can do it.
Yeah, we've mentioned this before. Like our biggest hope is we can get into early access stable. We had a lot of fun playing alpha with you guys, and we got a lot of great feedback from all of you. We found a bunch of bugs, but this performance thing really kind of took us for a loop, and that set us back. Like we've spent 2 months on performance and not really adding game features. And in our mind, it's not just like, well, we're going to go into early access then with less game features. It's we're going to push early access back some until we get performance to be what we want it to be. That means we will just keep opening the alpha up until we're happy with performance. We might, go offline for a while, keep trying, because we feel like we have one shot into early access. Once we get into early access, if we get support from the community, people are enjoying the game, they're playing the game, then we get to keep adding all the cool features that didn't make early access. So, like an example, someone brought up card games or gambling stuff. Like I think that'd be super fun. The team really wants to do something with trains. We have a bunch of different versions of what trains could look like. So trying to get trains in the game would be super cool. I love boat stuff. Like recently playing Windrose, the Rust Deep Sea stuff. I think is some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen in a video game. Like I'd love to do some boat stuff. I think would be super awesome. But that's all like some of those bigger features are post early access to us. Pre early access, we're mostly focused on performance. That's the number one thing. Frame rate, that's second thing. We really want the client to perform well and run smoothly on people's hardware. And then there's a bunch of features we have in the game right now that we think aren't far enough along and that could really stand to be evolved. Mining is a great example. We've put so much effort and time into mining, and we think it's so cool what we have. But trust me, the team thinks it could be even cooler. And we want to try to see mining through and push mining even further. Another example of a feature that we feel like is just in its nascent form and needs a lot of love and needs to be evolved is our building system. Like you can do a lot of really cool creative things with our building system. I think our art team and our design team are doing really great things with the building system and our engineering. And someday we'll show some of the cool engineering behind the building system because Dan Reed, who's the guy who, one of the guys, I shouldn't say the guy, but one of the main guys behind the Overwatch workshop, he's doing the building system right now, along with Matt Goss, who is a great designer. And we have really amazing artists, but like that system is not where we want it to be yet. And for early access, we know it can be so much cooler than what we had in the alpha. And even in the alpha, people made some really cool stuff, but like we're going to keep pushing on that. So farming is a great question. Farming is what we would call a stretch goal for early access. Some sort of ability to grow stuff on your ranch would be really cool. Ranching, like, you know, having animals, breeding animals, etc., probably a stretch for early access, but there's a lot of enthusiasm and sort of will on the team to get those in. So those would be really big features that we'd like to get to. So it's just that mix. Like there's always wanting to make more features. There's always wanting to make more art. There's always wanting to make, you know, just a lot more content. And you're constantly spinning these plates of what's the most important thing right now. And hands down, like far and away above everything else was performance, because we want to get more players on a server and have that experience be more stable than it was in alpha. And that comes from a place like just people like me, Tim, Bill, just as players, like this is not cool. This isn't acceptable how it's working right now. And we want it to feel better. Like if I was playing this game, I wouldn't be okay with these kind of like spikes happening. Yeah, PvP stuff, definitely for early access. In fact, one of the first things we did, like me, Tim, Goodman, right after early access ended, was we started brainstorming like what is a PvP server look like the whole server. So we already have like PvP on our PvE servers, and we've done some iteration. Jeff Goodman rewrote the world event scheduler, which is the thing that calls the world events to happen. And he basically put PvP in its own channel. So the PvP events could happen at a much higher frequency than they were happening in the alpha. So hopefully for the PvP players, that drives them more into that. But I think PvP is like really, really important. Again, not for everybody. Not everybody wants PvP all the time. But for those players looking for PvP, like we want to make sure that there's a way that they can have it happen. Sorry, I'm just rambling. Tim's looking at graphs.
Yeah. So this is like one of the artifacts we would output, right? That going back to that same insights file of like, hey, where's the time actually going? I should mention too, like the client I'm running here, the server I'm running are heavily instrumented, so they're not what we call performance builds, or what WoW would call it retail. Apparently, I'm not going to say the word we actually call it because I don't want to get trapped. But it's worth it, right? Because with this additional data, it can give us insights into. That's why it's called insights. Give us insights into where the time is actually going.
So
And it's not a surprise.
somebody in Discord asked question, is there anything fans, alpha players can do to help support the game? I know wishlisting can help boost the Steam store metrics, organic promotion, like most anticipated, but what else? Like, you guys are doing it. The fact that you're even here on a Saturday, hanging out with us, watching the stream. If you watch and comment on our YouTube videos, that's super appreciated. TikTok, the people participating in Discord, like, we're not looking to like be shills to you guys, and we're not looking to turn you guys into shills. Like, just if the game is interesting to you, don't feel like you have any obligation to us or whatever. Like, we just appreciate the support you've been giving us, and it's just awesome. Like, I really believe it's game developers' responsibility to earn it every step of the way. Like, we have to earn everybody's trust and respect. And the only way to do that is not through something that we say, it's that the game is fun and it doesn't rip you off and it works well. And, all the things that we've all run into with games where we feel like we've kind of gotten the short end of the stick, we need to not do that stuff to you.
Yeah.
So I super appreciate it. Like, yeah, I'd love to say wish list us, but I
Smash
don't.
that like and subscribe button.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
what do any of these algorithms do?
Yeah. But I'm glad you guys came out and were engaged. This is, you never know who is interested in this stuff. Hopefully, you guys found this interesting. It's very much behind the scenes, but we're we like solving hard problems. That's the nature of this game. Really drives that home, and we're happy to share some of those solutions with you guys and hear your feedback. All right. Well, is this as good a time as any to close this guy out? It looks like Autobot 18 has logged out for the next 30 or 40 minutes. We're starting to see more Autobots trickle in here.
Nice.
Autobot
And we'll
was a
do this.
champion.
Yeah, we'll do this again, everyone. We'll try to communicate. Like, we'll put it on our socials, like when we'll do it again, and we'll also try to be more directed with what type of stream we're going to do. Like, are we going to do behind the scenes tech talk, engineering heavy? Maybe we'll do some design and art ones behind the scenes. And also, we can just do some play sessions. We can play, like, especially as we're getting closer to our next alpha, which isn't too far off, to be honest. We can just play the game some if you guys just want to see it in action. We can do that. Always happy to stream other games too. We can do that. So it's just wonderful that you all turned out here. Also, thank you to Tim for sharing your brilliance with us. I always
Taking credit for the brilliance
something.
of my team. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep. No, this is always fun. All right, everybody. We'll close this guy out, but thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have more later.
Okay. Have a great Saturday, everybody.
Yep. We'll see you in Discord. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.